Jamie Salver. Tremendous miracle too. And hallelujah, woman without a purse ain't a woman. That's what I thought. Amen. Give her a good hand. Her dad's going to finish up, so whenever you get through, just hand it off.
Okay, all right. I'm Jamie, and I just wanted to speak today a little bit about my testimony. Growing up, I had a great childhood. I had parents who loved me, family who loved me. Okay. But whenever I started school, I had real problems in school, getting bullied, and the girls were just, really mean to me all the time. I never really felt like I fit in. I tried to fit in every way possible, and I was a people pleaser, so I was always trying to do something to make everybody happy, you know what I mean? So I was trying to be all these different people in order to fit in and make people happy, and hopefully they would like me, and I just never really found my place. And I remember the first time that I ever had a drug, an opiate. I was 15 or 16, and I'd got my wisdom teeth taken out. And I remember my mom was, administering the medicine to me. And as soon as that medication got in my body, I remember I could still feel that feeling because it was the first time in my life that I ever felt okay with myself. It was the first time in my life that I ever felt like I was going to be all right and I could handle, not fitting in. I could just be me, and if you didn't like me, fine. If you did, then great. But now after all that medication was gone, I never went out looking for any more. But I got bronchitis, and my doctor called me in Tussinex, and that had hydrocodone in it, which was the same thing I'd taken, whenever I had my teeth taken out. And so as soon as I took that, I remembered that feeling, and after that point, it was on. I knew it was several doctors. We had a doctor in the church, and I was dating his son, and he was always calling refills in for me. And if he wasn't, I was calling another doctor, and they were calling refills in for me because I felt like I couldn't be who I was without that medication. I didn't never feel like I fit in anywhere. I mean, I'd been raised around adults only, and so I basically, I guess I was kind of like a grown-up in a little body, and so I never really ever got that feeling of being a part of something. And that medication helped me feel that way. And so it turned in, basically I got married to the guy whose dad was a doctor, and we got married, and his dad one day wanted to know if he could use my phone because his phone was broke or something. And I was like, sure, you can use my phone. And so he got in my phone and he saw all of these pharmacies in my phone, and he was like a red flag, you know what I mean? And so basically he called us in one Saturday morning, and we were like, what is he going to talk to us about? And we got there, and he had printed off all of the bottles of Tussinex that I'd had, which would have probably filled up half this room. And so he said to me, Jamie, it looks like you've got a problem. And, I never really thought about having a problem because I'd never tried to quit. I never said, well, you know what, this is enough. I'm going to quit this stuff because I'm going to try to, I never even thought of myself as an addict ever. And I mean, I did later, but not during that time period. And he said, what do you want to do? What do you need to do? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I didn't know anything about rehabs or, counselors and stuff like that. And he said, Ryan looked over at me, my husband at the time, and he said, you just need to go run. And I was like, okay, run. And so I tried this, and it didn't work. Actually, I couldn't even run because I was so sick I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, your body goes through physical withdrawals on opiates, and so I was so sick I couldn't even get out of bed to go run. But I tried doing everything they told me to do. Nothing was working. I couldn't get anything at a pharmacy anymore because his dad had like blackballed me at the pharmacies. So I couldn't get anything there. So I started getting it off the streets. I started meeting people, and I knew they had pills, and I would buy it from them. And so I was keeping it secret from my husband and from my family. And it took a really long time for them to ever really know I had a problem, because I was very, very, very good at covering things up. I was very good at looking the part and making everything seem like it was okay when it wasn't. It was falling apart inside of me. And so after all of that, my husband and I, we moved to Tulsa because he was in medical school there. And so I got pregnant and I was having a baby, and I thought I was going to stay home, and be a stay-at-home mom, because that's what I'd always really wanted to do once I got pregnant. And so when I started staying home, I had like ins and outs of not doing anything, trying to lay it down, and then things would get so much, I just couldn't handle it, so I would take my medicine. And so we were in Tulsa, and I met a girl there that basically knew several people. It was a whole connection up there who had pills. And so I was constantly getting pills from them and drinking wine, and I forget about the part where I was an alcoholic, but God's had delivered me from that. And it's been about 10 years, but I was a very big alcoholic. I mean, I was at the liquor store before they opened, and I was there again before they closed. And I was doing that on top of taking pills and trying to keep it all together, and pretend like I was okay when I wasn't, because I really didn't want anyone to worry about me, because I didn't know that, I felt like there was no hope, like I was going to probably die as an addict, because I didn't know how to get off these things. Like running wasn't working, working out wasn't working. I tried to taper myself down. That didn't work. As long as I had them, I was going to take them. And so it was getting more and more powerful. And so we moved to Oklahoma City. And after medical school, Ryan was doing his residency in Oklahoma City. I probably shouldn't say his name, but I already did. So I'm sorry. He won't hear this, I'm sure. So anyways, we moved to Oklahoma City, and I was having my second child, and I had her while he was in residency. So I was still staying home, and I had always worked. I'd always been someone who, I'd worked since I was like 15, and I managed some stores at Abercrombie and Fitch. I managed that store, and then, Victoria's Secret. And so I love people. I love to be around people and, talk to people and converse with people. And so staying home I felt like a failure as a mother, because I wasn't happy doing it. I mean, I loved my children, loved them, but I didn't know anybody, and I was just isolated all day long with my kids. Ryan was gone like 80 hours a week because he was working his butt off. And so anyways, I just never really felt like that was my position. I felt like I should work, and then when I was around my kids, we could really do fun things and enjoy each other. But this all day, just me and the kids at home was not working out. And so I kept medicating even more. And then I decided I was going to go to the YMCA and try to meet some friends. And I get there, and everybody's got their headphones on. So I'm like, how am I supposed to meet someone? This is going to be very difficult to meet someone with headphones. So this girl gets beside me on the treadmill, and she doesn't have headphones on. So we start talking, and she asked me to go to lunch with her the next day. And so I said, yeah, that would be great. She also had a kid that was in the daycare and at the YMCA, and my kids were in there. And so we were driving to lunch the next day. She came and picked me up, and I had a really bad headache. And I said, my head is like killing me today. And she said, well, I've got something for it. And come to find out, she was a pill dealer, and also she dealt heroin. She was one of the biggest heroin dealers in Oklahoma City. And I had no idea. And so one thing led to another, and there was a night that I couldn't find any pills, and I was sick as a dog. I remember just feeling so sick. I was hurting all over. And I called her, and she said, I've got some heroin. And I never thought, when I thought of heroin, I always thought of like someone sitting down in the alley with a needle hanging out of their arm, they've lost everything. And basically, I told her, I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I can't do heroin, call me if you find any pills. And I sat there for like 30 minutes to an hour, and I was like, I called her back and I said, get it ready for me. I'm coming over. I'm too sick. And so she said, okay. Well, then I started doing heroin, and I got really bad on heroin, using a needle. It started happening then, and it just one thing after another. I was losing control of everything around me. I would sleep in, and the kids would miss school, and just things like that. I just wasn't responsible for anything because I couldn't. I was out of it, and I would just do this heroin like all day long, and literally just be a zombie, around my family. And so I lost a bunch of weight. I got down to like 97 pounds while I was on this. And thank God one day my mom and dad came up and they were like, Ryan, your wife is dying. Our daughter is dying. Do you not see her? And he had just avoided all of it. He never said anything to me. He never asked me questions, of like, where's all the money going? And he just never did. And so it was like he knew what was going on, but he just didn't know how to approach it. And once he approached it, then it was there, for sure. And I think he just kept hoping that it would go away. And so Dad and Mom came up and they said, she's dying and there's no way, this girl's not on drugs. We know she is. And I remember that feeling of just feeling like 1,000 pounds was lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to hide it anymore. And I thought, oh my God, I'm just so glad someone knows what's going on, And so they got me into a treatment center. It was what's the name of it's like a detox center. I think TRC, I believe is what it was, TRC. And so they got me into this detox center, and I was in there for 10 days, and they were giving me a Suboxone, which is a medication where you can take, but it blocks it. It has an opiate blocker. So it's got opiates in it, but so it just makes you where you're not sick, is basically what it does. It keeps you from getting sick whenever you're coming off of opiates. And so they gave me that, and they were administering that to me, and they were trying to taper me down because I was going to go to rehab after that. And the rehab, you couldn't be on any kind of medication like that. And so they tapered me down. I went to rehab, and I remember the first 2 weeks of rehab, I didn't even feel like moving. I didn't want to get out of bed. I just walked around with a hoodie on and tried to just, please don't see me. I don't want to volunteer and talk. I just want to sit here. I don't even want to sit here. I'd like to go lay down in bed because I feel that bad. But I was trying to be tough, and, they told me that I had to go to all these meetings, so I did. And so I guess me trying to blend in, I actually stood out because I was the only one with a hoodie on, a black hoodie, just trying to like blend into, I'm a lampshade. And it wasn't working. And so I started kind of getting into the groups and trying to really work the program. I was there, I graduated. I went home, and Mom and Dad were really wanting me to come up to their house because at that time, Ryan's family, his mom and dad had my kids. And they were going to school in Vian. And so, the kids' deal was taken care of. And it almost killed me being away from my kids for as long as I was. I thought that seemed like an eternity. I remember that. They would come up and see me on the weekends, Mom and Dad would bring them up. But I just remember thinking, God, I can't be away from my kids this long. But then on the other hand, what good am I around them right now until I get myself lined out? And so it was one of those things that I had to deal with first before I could get my kids. And so Mom and Dad talked to Ryan and tried to get Ryan to let me live with them, because Dad's always preaching the word to me, and he's always very uplifting, and Mom is one of my best friends, so she is my best friend. And so anyways, he said no. He wanted me to come back to Oklahoma City. Well, I knew everyone. I was in with the cartel. I was meeting them to get heroin. I've had guns pulled on me, and it was a very dangerous situation. And so anyways, I went back up there and I was clean for 2 weeks at home, and then I relapsed. And so that 3 months just wasn't long enough for as deep as I was in my addiction. I needed something, I needed more, I needed to stay somewhere longer, and they just turned me loose and I wasn't ready, you know. And so I relapsed on heroin and got really bad again. When we moved back to Salisaw, where he was working at the hospital, and we lived real close to the hospital, and I got pregnant with my third child, Journey. And I had her, and I just remember thinking, God, please let her be healthy. Just let her be healthy. Don't let anything happen to her. Because I had this addiction of mine was so powerful, guys. I mean, I wish I could explain it to you, but there's really no words to explain it. It was so powerful that even being pregnant, I couldn't quit, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was so lost. I was so broken. And I remember one night, God was really dealing with me through all of this. And I remember thinking one night, like, how broken I was. And I was like, God, I always thought that you had something great for me to do in this life. I always felt like a calling upon my life. But I was like, I'm this broken mess now. I'm just a wreck. And I mean, what can you do with me now? And I remember him just speaking at me. It was loud and clear. And he said, Jamie, all of that brokenness and all those cracks are just more space for my light to shine out. And I remember thinking, God, that's beautiful, and only you can make something that broken and that sad that beautiful. And so I went to rehab again. I'd been to rehab like 5 or 6 times, and we decided to put me in drug court when I was pregnant again with my 4th child, and which was my little boy Jackson. And we decided that I needed to be in some kind of program where I had accountability. Like if I messed up, they put me in jail, Well, I didn't have any felonies or I didn't have any history of, being in trouble with the law. So I'd written a check on my grandma's farm account. And so my parents and I discussed it, and we said that, I'm going to have y'all press charges against me because you had to have a felony in order to get in the program. And so I had Mom and Dad press charges on me so that I had a felony so that I could get in this program. It was a 2-year program. And, that way it would save my baby's life. I mean, I was willing to have a felony on my record and risk going to prison to save my child. That's how desperate I was. And so, anyways, I had to do a lot of jail time because it wasn't that I used, but there's a bunch of rules and regulations in drug court, and I have a problem with authority sometimes, and so I would pick people up and bring them to drug court, people that didn't have ride, and I got in a lot of trouble, so I spent a lot of time in jail. So I remember being in jail, and I wrote this poem, and it'll just kind of give you guys an idea of like where I was at this time. But I was sitting in jail, pregnant with Jackson, and okay, it goes like this. My will has become my demise in the solace place. I glance in the mirror but can't see my face. Just dark, empty eyes have taken its place. As I lay awake, tormented, many nights in my bed, death that's been welcomed has time and time fled. I feel my heart beating, but don't feel alive. I feel but a host for this life that's inside. I hope that he's healthy and finds joy in this world. His mother has tried and has failed once more. Darkness surrounds me. What have I become? Panic arises. I have nowhere to run. I cannot escape me. I have tried for so long. Only God can show me the place I belong. So I just really did. I felt like just a host. I felt like an empty shell of something. And I was in so deep and so dark. And, Dad and I talked about it. And even though I could see my parents and be around them, we were worlds apart. And I was in this world, and Mom and Dad were in another world. And we were so worlds apart, like they couldn't reach me, and I didn't know how to hear them. And so God really started dealing with me again. And so I did really good in drug court after that point, because I remember standing in front of the judge. And usually if you had any sanctions, because when they put you in jail, you don't have, you can't be bonded out. You stay in there until they let you out. And so But if you have so many sanctions, they usually send you to prison. And I'm thinking, I put myself in here to save my baby. Surely they won't send me to prison. Wrong. I was wrong. They were going to send me to prison. And so Tina was always on me saying, Jamie, you're going to go to prison if you don't start cooperating. And so I remember standing in front of Judge Sprouse, and I stood there, and I'd always heard if he moved his glasses down, then, you better watch out. But he took his glasses off. So I thought, what does this mean? And he looked at me I remember standing right there in front of me, and just looked at me like a stare that looked through me. And he said, Jamie, do you think I should send you to prison? And I sat there for a long time. And I was trying to compare me to the other people that had been sent to prison, and knowing that I'd been in trouble way more times. And of course I didn't want to go to prison. I wanted to say, no, please give me one more chance, And I said, I believe you should send me. I believe I should go to prison. Because if I compared it to others, yes, I should have already been in prison. And he sat there and he looked at me and he said, Jamie, ever so often someone comes before me and I see something great in them. I see this light in them. And he goes, you have that. And he goes, I'm going to give you another chance. And so he did, and I straightened up after that. I straightened up and graduated the program and all of that. And so I relapsed again. I relapsed so many times, but I relapsed again and got back. And I was like, every time you relapse, it's like you go deeper and darker you start right where you left off. There's no easing back into it. You start right where you left off. So I ended up losing my kids. I haven't seen my kids in almost 3 years, guys. And it has fueled my addiction even more, because there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about those babies and wonder at night how they're going to sleep without their mama there, And I think about them every single day. But I'm 2 weeks away from getting to see them. So, 2 weeks away. I haven't even got to talk to them on the phone. They were just pulled out of my arms, and I never saw them again. And I can't tell you what kind of pain that is. I can't even describe it. There's no words for it. But I want you to know that God has healed me. He's healed me from my addiction. Thank you, babe. And I have become a new person. Completely. I have no desire for a drug. And once you get off drugs, reality really slaps you in the face. And you start seeing all the things and all the destruction that's happened because of your drug addiction. All the people that have been hurt. And that's really hard for me, because I love people. And I don't want to hurt anybody. It goes against everything I've always done my whole life. I was a people pleaser. I tried to make people happy. And here I destroyed all these lives. And so it broke my heart to see it. And for me to stay straight with that kind of heartbreak was a miracle. It was a miracle. So I wrote this poem when we were traveling to Canada with Mom and Dad. It says, the title is Changing of the Day. In the midst of death, I found life. At my weakest moment, I found strength. In my aloneness, you gave me comfort. And in my darkest hour, you revealed to me a light in the midst of my earth. And in that light, Lord, I found you. Thank you guys for letting me come up here and speak to you. I really appreciate it. I love you guys. I don't know you. And it's a real honor to stand up here and tell you guys my story. It's hard to tell sometimes, but if it could speak to anybody out in the audience or anyone who's watching it, then it's all worth it to me. I'll tell it. Okay? I love you guys. Dad? You're up.
That's real. I mean, we say something out of the fantasy book. It's something into our lives that we have revealed before you this morning. You know, we walked every bit of it with us. Every step of it. I'm telling you what, sometimes it got tough for you know, that is ever going to end. You know, I've told people if prayers and tears would have delivered her, she had been delivered a long time ago, because I'm telling you people, I've prayed and I've cried a river of tears in this situation. And I'm going to tell you people, this is a real reality that we're in this age, in this dispensation that we're living in. It's taken a whole generation, you know, and the church hadn't wanted to look at it. So what do? They cast them out. Things the church don't want to deal with, they don't deal with them. But I'm telling you, God's raising the people that's going to deal with them and walk in the midst of them. And they're being raised out of the pit of hell. She was forced in hell. Do you understand that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, she had there was many things that had to happen. You know, everybody wants to talk about just as, you know, deliverance isn't just boom, zap, bam, gone. I mean, you know, there's deep things that has to be dealt with. And I didn't understand that. You know, the religious mind has to be changed. Amen. You know, to where we just think everything is just like walking up to McDonald's and ordering it. You're dealing with human lives. You're dealing with emotions, feelings. You know, God took 7 days to create something. You know, it didn't come automatically. And she didn't only just have problems with that, she cut herself all the time. You know, and that's a form of the life that where you hate yourself. You know, and the family that she's talking about, her in-laws, they thought she was just off having a good time. What the church and what the world don't realize, it's a disease, people. Drugs isn't the problem. There's something far deeper. They use the drugs to cover up what's going on in here. And we're not willing to go in here and see what's happening. You understand what I'm saying? And I never will forget, I was in, y'all been there, at Clifton Pettit's church where we just recently had a meeting, and my daughter had come that morning, and she had just recently cut herself, just all up and down the arms. And I got up and I began to preach. And God began to lead me to the story, if you'll remember, when Jesus took his disciples and he crossed to the other side. People, we got to be willing to go to the other side. Do you understand what that means? The other side, where the death realm reigns. And I don't think Jesus just crossed the Sea of Galilee. I think he was crossing dominions. He was crossing ages into death itself. Because he said there was a man there in the Galileans. Remember the story? He said he cut himself night and day. And listen to what he said. They bound him with their chains and flitters, and they could not help him. If you really look in the deep part of that story, that was the church system of that day that had cast him in there, and they had tried every form of doctrine and teaching they had and could not touch him. Can you hear that? They chained him up in it and everything. Because I'm going to tell you, there's a place that only the Christ can touch. Amen. Amen. And when he walked in that side, what happened? You know that was the one deliverance that God did. From that point on, she never cut herself again after God ministered that story to her. Because Christ in that ministry crossed over into her and delivered her of the cutting. Because she had been through many deliverances. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? It's not just a one shot in the arm deal. You can't find the doctrine in a form of a teaching and answer all your questions. because God is recreating a new creation in us,
Amen.
a new man. Amen. And I want to tell you another story that she went through. She became homeless during these last 3 years that she hadn't seen her children, and she got hooked up with a guy which was a warlock in that realm. I mean, he was a master of it, and I knew where she was going, and I tried to convert it because we as seers in the spirit, we can see what's going to happen. But though we can see it, don't mean we can keep it from happening. And I knew, and I told her, I said, "Hon, when you go, you're going to be gone a while." And I kept telling her mom, I said, "She's going to be there a while, though." And I knew in my spirit where she was going, and I knew how long it was going to take to bring her out. Did it make it any less painful? No. No, it didn't. Me and her mother just cried a river of tears. But she was in with the most dangerous people that you could be in our area. I mean, they die daily in that realm. And she was at a house with a lot of these people one night. And I wanted her to tell the story, but I'll go ahead and tell it since she didn't. She has so much to tell. She only revealed a part of what she went through. But she was at a house. These men were there. They were gangster men, drug lords, and all packed guns. And I mean, if you know that world, it's a dangerous world. And here she is there in the midst of them. And this one guy's been known for killing women and everything else. And he usually, when a good-looking woman comes in, that's the first thing he does. He runs to them and tries to win them over. And he did not speak one word to her that whole night. And everybody was really confused about it because they thought for sure that he would be the first one to walk up to her and start beginning to hit on her and try to win her over. And so when she left that night, she left alone, but the next day, a friend of hers that was there, a guy friend, come home and said, "Jamie," said, "who was with you last night?" And Jamie said, "Nobody was with me last night, by myself." And he said, "Well, that ain't what I heard." And he said, "What are you talking about?" He said, and she mentioned the guy's name, I don't know his name, but mentioned his name, and he said, "We all are standing here just waiting for you to begin to jump all over Jamie and try to win her over and begin to take her as your own." And he said, "Are you kidding me?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You didn't see them two big guys standing on both sides of her? Nobody could see them but him. Two big guys standing there." And he said, "I wasn't about to talk to her." Isn't that amazing? Hey, this is the realm I'm talking about that we're fixing to walk into. Amen. Where that side and this side is joined together as one. Amen. Amen. And for the parents that has addiction in their family, and I'm telling you, every family I know is touched by it somewhere, because it just don't touch them; it touches the entire family. And I'm going to tell you, it is a whirlwind ride. And it's a destroyer. There's nothing about it that has life in it. It comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And it's exactly what it does. Amen. But I thank God that we are a people that has come together. And I thank God that has stayed here. I didn't think I would go. There was many times with people. I'm going to tell you something. Me knowing God, and I've walked with God over 30 years. I've preached over 30 years. Let me put it that way. So I've walked with God for 40 years. But there was times I didn't know if my daughter was going to come through it. There was times I didn't know if she was going to get delivered this side or the other side. Amen. And I'm just telling you the truth about it. Because there was times when it looked dim. But it all wasn't glorious. Amen. But it is such a grand day to stand here and see her standing in a pulpit when I never thought I'd ever see that in life. And begin to tell her a story of what God has done in her life. Amen. Amen. What a life she'll tell.